The waiter cleared his throat. "Ma'am, the card was declined." Denise didn't blink. "Because my son used it without permission." Caleb stopped chewing. His smile faltered. She folded her napkin with care, not anger. "I froze it at sunrise," she said, "right after I checked the date." That's when he realized his mother hadn't forgotten anything, not even her birthday. "Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe." My phone stayed silent on my birthday, but his Venmo didn't. The second slice of cake tasted like compromise. Denise sat alone at her kitchen table, her fork gliding silently through layers of cream cheese frosting and spiced carrot. The candles were gone, burned down an hour ago. The gift bag from Rosa, lavender lotion and a cozy pair of socks, sat opened beside her, its tissue paper folded neatly as if it, too, had tried not to disappoint. She hadn't expected balloons or fanfare, not even flowers, but she had expected a call. The phone lay just inches from her plate, face up, still, blank, unmoved. Her son had not texted. Her son had not called. Her son Caleb had not remembered. Denise took another bite, chewed slowly, and turned her eyes toward the window. The sun was beginning to dim, painting the neighbor's fence in gold. Somewhere down the street, a child laughed, then screamed. Probably a game, probably joy. She stood, rinsed her plate in the sink, and dried it like she had done every evening for years. Efficient, precise, almost ritualistic. The silence didn't bother her. It was the absence within it that had changed. She reached for her phone, thumb hovering, unsure why. There was nothing to check, no alert, no apology, no, "Sorry, I've been busy." Just the silent home screen and the blinking Wi-Fi icon. She opened her banking app instead, not out of instinct, but curiosity. The balance loaded in slowly. Then the transaction history. $94.20. Laurenti's Trattoria, 6:08 p.m. Denise stared at the charge. Laurenti's, upscale, romantic, Italian, a place she hadn't stepped foot into in 5 years, a place Caleb had once said was only for special occasions. She clicked the line for details, credit card ending in 3289. Her card. It was then, in the quiet of her kitchen, that something inside Denise shifted. Not snapped, not cracked. Just tilted, as if a picture frame had been crooked on the wall for years, and she'd finally noticed it askew. She opened Instagram. Caleb's profile was public. A photo posted an hour earlier showed him in a booth at Laurenti's, wine glass in hand, his arm around a friend. Jason, maybe. Someone he only called when he was trying to look important. The caption read, "Treat yourself. You deserve it." There were comments. One from a woman she didn't know. Whose card this time? Another beneath it. "LOL, did your mom pay again?" Denise closed the app. She stood there, holding her phone, unsure whether to laugh or drop it. Her jaw tightened, but her face remained still. Not a flicker of anger. Just that same tilt, something that could be straightened or something that could fall. She opened her banking app again. Navigated to card controls. "Freeze card? Are you sure?" The button glowed at the bottom of the screen. Her finger hovered. One tap, and it would stop. No more surprise dinners. No more forgotten birthdays paid for by someone else's account. No more being remembered only by the numbers she carried instead of the years she gave. She didn't press it, not yet. She clicked cancel and let the screen fade to black. Denise walked to the hallway closet and pulled out her small leather-bound notebook, the one where she tracked passwords, recipes, and notes no one else ever saw. She flipped to the last empty page. She wrote, March 22nd, birthday. No call from Caleb, no message, $94.20 charged at Laurenti's. 6:08 p.m. His post, treat yourself. Comment, did your mom pay again? She tapped the pen twice against the margin, then underlined one word at the bottom. Remember. In the other room, the air conditioner kicked on, a small, familiar hum. Outside, the sky had turned a muted blue, evening folding over the neighborhood like a soft, unspoken apology. Denise turned off the kitchen light, placed the notebook in her drawer, and walked down the hall. Her phone buzzed once. She didn't check it. Denise taps freeze card, but doesn't press confirm yet. He forgot my birthday, but remembered the PIN I never gave him. The glow of the phone screen lit Denise's face long before the sun rose. She hadn't slept. Not really. Her body had lain still under the covers, but her thoughts had moved restlessly across memories, numbers, and silence. When she finally gave up on pretending to rest, the clock read 5:12 a.m. She made tea instead of coffee. Chamomile. Steadying. Sitting at the kitchen table again, she opened Instagram. She knew what she was looking for. What she wasn't prepared for was how easily. She found it. There it was. Posted late last night. Caleb in a booth at Laurenti's, half a cocktail in hand, his head tilted back mid-laugh. The glass sparkled. The table was crowded with plates, pasta, oysters, calamari, and behind him blurred lights from a dessert tray. The caption read, "Treat yourself. You deserve it." Denise didn't react. She stared at the photo, studied the way Caleb's jaw was slightly clenched, even while smiling. The way he always posed like he had something to prove. A man trying to look casual but never looking relaxed. She tapped to read the comments. Most were heart emojis, a few fire symbols. Someone named Jordan said, "Let's go." Then she saw it, a short comment from a username she didn't recognize. "Did your mom pay again?" No one had responded. No one needed to. The question didn't need confirmation. It was a statement dressed as a joke. Denise sat very still. She reached for her mug and sipped. Warmth bloomed in her mouth but didn't reach her chest. She opened her banking app again, the same card listed at the top, ending in 3289. Her transaction list loaded. One new entry she hadn't noticed before. A coffee shop charge at 11:42 p.m., $6.35. Denise's thumb hovered again over the freeze card option. She didn't press it. She pressed details instead, then scrolled to device access under security. 3 devices were listed. One was hers, one was her tablet, and the third? A phone she didn't recognize, a model she'd never owned, logged in 4 months ago from a different IP address. The phone buzzed softly. A new notification. Venmo. Caleb had posted again. Caleb Tate at Jax Rogers' message. "Thanks for splitting dessert. Real ones only." She stared at the transaction. The amount was small, less than $10, but the tone wasn't. Real ones only, as if loyalty was determined by who picked up the check or who didn't ask questions. Denise set the phone down. Her hands were steady now. She walked to her desk in the corner of the living room, opened her laptop, clicked open a browser window. In the search bar, she typed slowly, deliberately, "How to report unauthorized use of a family-linked credit card." The suggestions filled in before she was done typing. She clicked the top result. A page from her bank's fraud protection portal opened. The header read, "Recognizing financial abuse from trusted contacts." She read it. Every word, every example, every listed behavior that made her pulse tighten. None of it felt foreign. In the next room, the refrigerator clicked on. A car passed outside, its tires whispering against the wet pavement. Denise didn't move. She read the section again. Then she clicked the Download Documentation Packet button. She didn't file it. Not yet. She saved it to her desktop and named the file. Selective Memory, reportdraft.pdf. She returned to the kitchen, poured the rest of her tea down the sink, and rinsed the cup with water that now felt colder than it should have. Then she opened her notebook to a new page. March 23rd, Instagram post. Caption, "Treat yourself." Comment confirmed pattern, device login unknown, fraud page bookmarked. She underlined the last line twice, and added in the corner, "He forgot my birthday, but remembered the PIN I never gave him." Denise searches, "How to report unauthorized use of a family-linked card." "Last year I got flowers. This year I got fraud." The sound of shopping cart wheels echoed sharply down the produce aisle, broken only by soft overhead music and the rhythmic rustle of plastic bags being filled. Denise stood beside a stack of avocados, testing them with gentle pressure, when she heard the voice. "Hey, Ma." She didn't look up immediately, not out of hesitation, out of calculation. When she finally turned, there he was, Caleb, pushing a near-empty cart, a six-pack of sparkling water and a box of frozen dumplings resting inside. He looked the same, hair slightly unkempt, hoodie clean, but wrinkled. The same hopeful grin he wore when he wanted to dodge consequences without admitting them. He leaned on the cart handle. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I live 10 minutes away," she replied flatly. She placed a ripe avocado in her basket. He chuckled. "Yeah, I just mean, haven't run into you in a while." She looked at him evenly. "Well, you know, life." He followed her as she turned toward the citrus display, grabbing a lemon and inspecting it like she hadn't memorized how to pick the right one 30 years ago. "How've you been?" he asked. "Good." He nodded too quickly, then adjusted the sleeves on his hoodie. "Things have been kinda tight lately. You know how it is. Bills, rent, gas. Everything's crazy." She didn't respond. She weighed a lemon in her hand, then switched it out for another. His words didn't deserve commentary, only observation. Caleb cleared his throat. "Anyway, you doing anything this weekend?" Denise paused. Her hand hovered above a basket of blood oranges. "Not sure," she said. "Why?" "I was thinking of taking you to dinner, my treat. Sunday, maybe?" he offered, with a tone he must have assumed still passed as warmth. "Just the two of us. You deserve it." She looked at him fully now. His eyes met hers for a split second before drifting to the shelves behind her. "Big plans this week?" she asked instead. He tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "Just wondering," she said, setting the orange in her cart. The silence between them stretched, not awkward, just transparent. He scratched the back of his neck. "So, dinner sound good?" She gave a small nod, neither enthusiastic nor hesitant. "Text me the time." He smiled. "Cool. I'll find a place. Something nice." As he turned to head toward checkout, she glanced at the dumplings in his cart. Something about the minimalism of it felt off, as if the cart was dressed for sympathy. When he disappeared around the corner, Denise stood still for a long moment. The store sounds returned, the beep of a scanner, a child asking for cereal, the low murmur of two women comparing prices on almond milk. She pulled out her phone, opened her notes app, and typed, "March 24th, ran into Caleb, acts normal, said he wants to take me to dinner, tight on money, sparkling water plus frozen dumplings in cart, dinner equals deflection, watch receipts." She closed the app, then added, softly under her breath, "Last year I got flowers. This year, I got fraud." When she returned home, Denise placed the groceries neatly in the fridge. The stillness of the house wrapped around her like familiar fabric. She put away the avocados, set the lemons on the counter in a small ceramic bowl, and washed her hands without rushing. In the quiet that followed, she sat down at the dining table and opened her laptop. The file she'd bookmarked the day before, selective memory, reportdraft.pdf, still sat untouched. She didn't open it. She just hovered the mouse over it, not ready to send, not ready to forget. She simply renamed the file, Pending. Across town, Caleb scrolled through open table reservations, then paused, tapped on the same Italian place from earlier in the week, and smiled to himself. He still hadn't realized. Caleb invites her to dinner Sunday. His treat. He picked the place. I picked the moment. Denise arrived 10 minutes early, dressed in slate gray and soft pearls. Her blazer was pressed, her lipstick understated. She looked like a woman who had been invited to be honored, not forgotten. The maitre d' offered her a warm smile. "Good evening. Table for 2, she said calmly. "Under Tate." He nodded and gestured. "Right this way." The booth Caleb had reserved was tucked near the back, beneath a low-hanging chandelier that spilled golden light across white linen and empty glasses. She slid into her seat with practiced grace, folding her napkin carefully into her lap. The waiter approached. "Would you like something to drink while you wait?" "Water's fine for now," she replied. "He won't be long." Caleb was 15 minutes late. When he did arrive, it was in a rush of cologne and confidence, like tardiness could be wiped away with charm. "Hey, Ma." he said casually, leaning in for a one-armed hug that barely grazed her shoulder. She didn't rise. "You look nice," he added, glancing at her necklace as he slid into the seat across from her. She offered a soft, "Thank you," and nothing more. He opened the menu, already halfway through flipping pages. "Man, I've been craving the calamari here for weeks. And their burrata? Unreal." Before she could respond, he flagged down the waiter. "We'll do the grilled calamari, the burrata, and, He scanned the wine list. "A glass of the house red." The waiter nodded, jotting it down. "And for you, ma'am?" Denise lifted her eyes. "Just the water." The waiter left. Caleb didn't notice the shift in her expression or the restraint behind it. He leaned back. "I've been meaning to do this, you know? Just us. Things have been crazy lately. Work's been a nightmare. You know how it is." She didn't nod. She didn't frown. She just let the silence settle until he filled it again. "I meant to call earlier this week," he continued, "but Sunday dinners were always our thing, right?" "Our thing," she repeated softly. The appetizers arrived before she could say more. Caleb dug in immediately, tearing bread and scooping cheese like a man starved for simplicity. Denise took one slow bite, letting the salt of the olives press against her tongue. She studied him across the table. How quickly he ate, how carelessly he moved. A man who'd learned to consume before anyone could ask who was paying. Midway through the second appetizer, the waiter returned with a smile. "Still sparkling water for you?" he asked Denise. She nodded. Then he turned to Caleb. "And will you be using the same card as last time?" There it was. The moment. Not a dramatic reveal, not a scream, just a sentence dressed as routine. Caleb froze, fork halfway to his mouth. Denise smiled, a quiet, knowing thing, the kind of smile that didn't demand attention, but refused to be ignored. She sipped her water, her eyes steady on her son as he blinked, registering the implication. "What?" he said, caught between confusion and calculation. The waiter hesitated. "Apologies. Last time was the black card ending in 3289. Just assumed..." "That's, Caleb glanced at Denise. She didn't speak. She simply set her glass down and folded her hands neatly in her lap. The waiter looked between them, eyebrows raised politely. "I can come back." "No need," Denise said. Her voice was calm, low. "We'll let you know when we're ready." The waiter nodded and stepped away. Caleb opened his mouth, but Denise was already looking past him, scanning the restaurant as if nothing odd had happened. She didn't need an argument. She had a ledger. Denise smiles as the waiter says, "Same card as last time?" He picked up his phone when the waiter came. I picked up my app. The fork hovered midair, calamari looped and dripping with lemon aioli, as Caleb checked his phone for the third time that evening. "You know what's wild?" he said, chewing between sentences. "People still think I'm the type to be taken care of." Denise didn't respond. She was watching his thumb swipe across his screen. Casual. Practiced. A flick of movement, then a subtle nod toward the waiter passing behind him. It was tiny, barely noticeable, but it wasn't meant for her to notice. Only the waiter. The server returned within moments, offering Caleb a practiced, discreet smile. "All set with the main course?" Caleb gestured toward Denise. "She'll have the trout. I'll do the lamb ragu. Add another glass of red." "Of course." "And for the card, same as earlier?" Before Denise could lift her water glass, Caleb gave the same slight gesture again. Not a word. Just expectation. Entitlement masquerading as efficiency. Denise reached into her purse, not for her wallet, for her phone. One tap brought up the banking app. Her thumb hovered over the button she had studied 3 nights ago. Card ending in 3289. Status, active. Beneath it, freeze card? She didn't hesitate this time. Tap. A soft vibration confirmed the freeze. Done. She locked the phone, placed it on the table, and resumed sipping her water like nothing had changed. Dinner arrived 20 minutes later. The trout was perfect. Crispy skin, fragrant herbs, the kind of dish you'd savor on a special night. Caleb barely noticed. He was distracted, checking his phone again, half reading notifications, then slipping it back into his hoodie pocket. The conversation thinned into silence, only broken by the occasional clink of silverware. Denise didn't mind. Silence was easier than lies. When the plates were cleared, the waiter returned with a polite smile and a leather-bound folder. "Here you are," he said. "Just the one check?" Caleb nodded, reaching for the folder before Denise could move. He opened it confidently, pulled out the black card with her initials in silver, handed it over. The waiter took it with a nod and disappeared. Denise folded her napkin slowly. Waited. 3 minutes later, the waiter returned, brow furrowed just enough to be apologetic, not accusatory. "I'm so sorry, sir. The card was declined. It says it may be frozen." Caleb's face shifted from practiced charm to visible confusion. "Wait, what?" Denise looked up, calm as a church bell. "Oh," she said, tilting her head slightly. "I must have frozen it by mistake." He blinked. "You what?" She reached into her bag, pulled out a neatly folded wallet, and slid out 2 crisp 20s and a 10. Things happen. She placed the cash on the table with surgical precision. The waiter glanced between them, unsure whether to linger or vanish. "Would you mind splitting the check?" Denise asked, with the sweetness of someone confirming an appointment. The waiter nodded quickly. "Absolutely, right away." Caleb stared at her, jaw slightly open, words forming behind clenched teeth but going nowhere. Denise didn't fill the silence. She just waited. A moment later, the waiter returned with 2 separate receipts. Denise paid hers. Caleb pulled out his own card, one Denise hadn't seen before, and swiped it quickly. Approved. But barely. The waiter thanked them and left. Caleb stared at his receipt. Denise folded hers and placed it in her purse. "Well," she said, rising from her seat, "that was lovely." "Ma," Caleb said, his voice a whisper of warning. "Why would you freeze your card? What's going on?" She smiled gently. "I just figured it was time I stopped paying for things I didn't agree to." He opened his mouth, but she was already slipping on her coat. "She asks for separate checks and pays cash." He wanted to talk. I gave him quiet. The air outside the restaurant was thick with late spring humidity, the kind that settled into your clothes and made everything feel heavier than it was. A couple laughed somewhere near the valet stand. A car door slammed. Laughter rose, then faded. Caleb trailed a few steps behind Denise as she walked toward the lot, his keys dangling silently from one hand. "Let me walk you to your car," he said. Not quite a question. She didn't answer, just kept walking. Her heels clicked softly against the concrete, measured, deliberate. She passed 2 rows of cars before stopping at her silver sedan. "I'm parked over there," Caleb said, gesturing vaguely. "Didn't realize we were this far apart." Still, she didn't respond. He scratched the back of his neck. "You good?" She turned then, keys already in hand. Her expression was unreadable, lips pressed into something that wasn't quite a smile and certainly wasn't an invitation. "Fine," she said. "You've seemed a little, I don't know, off." Denise blinked once. "Off? I mean, I'm just saying," Caleb went on. "You've been quiet. At dinner, at the store the other day. It's like something's going on and you won't talk about it." She opened her door. The interior light spilled out onto the pavement, a soft dome of yellow casting long shadows beneath her feet. "I've talked plenty," she said. "You just weren't listening." "Come on, Ma. That's not fair." She paused with one hand on the doorframe. "Neither is paying for a dinner I wasn't invited to." Caleb looked down. His jaw flexed. "I didn't mean anything by that," he muttered. "I know." Silence stretched between them like a thread pulled taut. Denise settled into the driver's seat. The leather was warm. The cabin smelled faintly of peppermint and upholstery cleaner. "Ma..." She reached for the door and began to close it. "Drive safe." The door clicked shut before he could answer. Inside the car, Denise didn't start the engine right away. She watched him through the windshield as he stood there for a moment, unsure of whether to wait or leave. Eventually, he turned and walked back toward the restaurant. She waited until his figure vanished behind the glow of the neon signage before locking the doors with a quiet, mechanical snap. Then she started the car and pulled out of the lot without a second glance. The drive home was quiet, not peaceful, not tense, just quiet. She didn't turn on the radio, didn't check her mirrors more than necessary. The streetlights passed overhead like soft warnings. Her mind didn't wander, it calculated. Each mile was a review, not of the dinner, but of the pattern. Each moment over the last 3 years where she had said yes out of reflex, where her silence had been mistaken for softness, where affection was met with assumption. At a red light, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it on the passenger seat. A new message. From Caleb. "You embarrassed me tonight." That was all. No punctuation, no apology. Just the weight of his disappointment, handed to her like it was hers to carry. She picked up the phone, read it once, then set it back down. The light turned green. She drove on. At home, she walked in without flipping on the lights. Her heels clicked once on the hardwood floor, then stopped as she stood in the dim hallway, the house wrapped in a silence that finally felt earned. She opened her notebook on the hall table. March 26th. Dinner. Declined card confirmed. Caleb asked what was wrong. I said nothing. Text came later. "You embarrassed me." She underlined the last sentence once. Then she added, "He wanted to talk. I gave him quiet." Caleb texts her later. "You embarrassed me. He archived me, so I archived him." Denise sat at her desk, the mid-morning light pouring across a neat stack of files, a half-drunk cup of tea, and the slow hum of an aging laptop. On screen, a tab labeled Account Access. She didn't need to double-check what she was doing. This wasn't impulsive. It was overdue. One click at a time, she began dismantling the architecture of assumed trust. First, she navigated to her online medical portal. Under the Emergency Contact tab, Caleb's name sat at the top, bold, like a placeholder she had once typed in without much thought. She clicked the edit icon, replaced it with Rosa Santiago, her neighbor and friend of 20 years. A woman who had driven her to 2 surgeries, called her during storms, and once picked up her prescriptions without being asked. Relationship, friend phone, updated, trust, earned, save, done. Next, her bank. She opened the joint account settings. Caleb was listed there too, added during a long-ago moment when she thought she was preparing him, teaching him how to manage. A kind of gift, a kind of rehearsal. She clicked, Remove Authorized User. A pop-up appeared. Are you sure? This action is permanent. She clicked yes without hesitation. His name vanished. The cursor hovered over a final screen. Power of attorney. She opened the scanned form. Caleb's signature sat beside hers from 5 years ago, ink faded but still legal. She remembered the day she'd signed it. He hadn't looked up from his phone, just said, "Sure, whatever helps." It had helped him. Not her. She opened a new tab and pulled up a PDF template her lawyer emailed months ago. One call to Rosa later, the process was in motion. "You're really doing this?" Rosa asked gently. "Yes," Denise replied. "It's not out of anger, it's just time to update my records." She didn't mention the text. She didn't need to. That afternoon, she opened a drawer filled with old statements, some printed, some marked, most ignored since the pandemic began. Denise had always kept her records. Habit, mostly. But now, each page felt like evidence from a crime scene she hadn't realized was still active. She flipped through the statements with a yellow highlighter, eyes scanning for patterns. There. A rideshare at 2 a.m. in a city she hadn't visited. A tech accessory charged the day after she'd misplaced her card, but found it again in her own coat pocket. 2 streaming services she never subscribed to. 9 charges in total, scattered across the last 16 months. Each one small enough to seem forgettable. But cumulative theft is still theft. She reached the final page, and her pen slowed. $213.89. Jewel Box Fine Gifts. March 22nd. Her birthday. She hadn't gone shopping that day, hadn't bought anything other than her own small cake. She pulled up the store's website. Jewelry, scarves, boutique items for women, gifts. She clicked the top item under Best Sellers. A teardrop sapphire necklace. Delicate. Polished. $213.89. Denise sat back, her hand still resting on the mouse. Not even a knockoff, not even wrapped for her, just charged quietly without a single word, and sent elsewhere. She opened her notebook. March 27th. Removed Caleb as emergency contact, POA, and bank user. Total unauthorized uses, 9. Final charge, jewelry store on my birthday. Amount matches sapphire necklace online, recipient unknown. She paused, then added, he archived me, so I archived him. Outside, a bird sang in a tree without knowing anything had shifted. Inside, Denise opened a new folder on her desktop and named it, Revised Legacy. She began uploading documents, statements, scans, names. When she reached the necklace receipt, she didn't flinch. She saved it with a single-word file name. Proof. One charge is for a woman's necklace, on her birthday. I used to send him cards. Now I send him itemized statements. The envelope was pale gray, unremarkable, the kind of stationery used for wedding RSVPs or government letters. Neutral, weighty, hard to ignore. Denise folded the papers with care, aligning the corners like a bank teller preparing currency. 3 pages, typed, single-spaced, every transaction, every date, every dollar, no commentary, no emotion, just the truth, highlighted. She slid them into the envelope without a note. No signature, no return address, just his name, printed in block letters, CALEBTATE. The post office was nearly empty. A bell jingled softly overhead as she stepped inside. The air smelled like paper and metal and dust. Familiar? Contained. Just this, she said to the clerk. The woman scanned it, weighed it, then asked, tracking? Yes. Denise paid in cash. She kept the receipt. She didn't check the tracking number once. She didn't need to. She knew when it arrived. Because on the 3rd day, nothing happened. And on the 4th, her phone finally lit up. Caleb. Why are you doing this? That was the entire message. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I didn't realize. Not even, can we talk? Just a question soaked in entitlement. She read it once, twice. Then typed her reply slowly, like each letter was a nail being driven in with precision. Denise. Just reconciling my accounts. She didn't press send immediately. She reread it, smiling faintly at the neutrality of it. Factual, unemotional, final. Then she tapped send and placed the phone face down. The invoice had taken her 2 nights to compile. The language was clean, legal, just the facts. Page 1, dates and merchants. Page 2, subtotals, frequency, discrepancies with Caleb's known income. Page 3, a final figure, $1,680.72. Below it, she had added in small text, payment may be remitted via check, bank transfer, or Venmo. This is not a request. It is a balance. The house was quiet that afternoon. Too quiet. Denise moved through it like someone walking a familiar museum, pausing, adjusting, making mental notes of what should stay and what would go. She passed the hallway where Caleb's graduation photo still hung. The boy in the picture wore a crooked grin and a red tassel. He had borrowed her shoes for the ceremony. They were scuffed by the end of it. He never noticed. She didn't take the frame down, but she did flip it, face in, against the wall. By evening, her phone buzzed again. This time she didn't check it right away. She finished her tea, watered the rosemary plant on the windowsill, cleared her inbox. Only then did she glance at the screen. It was just a heart emoji. No words, no context. She deleted it. The next morning, Denise printed a copy of the invoice for her records and slid it into the folder labeled Archived Financial beside the documentation of the sapphire necklace charge and the authorization forms she'd filed with Rosa. She paused before closing it, then wrote on a sticky note, "Emotional labor is still labor." She stuck it to the front of the folder. The paper whispered closed. Outside, the mail truck pulled away from her curb. She smiled to herself. Once she'd sent Caleb birthday cards, letters from camp, reminders for appointments, encouragement scribbled with love in the margins. Now she sent him math. Denise replies, "Just reconciling my accounts." He said he didn't remember, my bank did. The request wasn't impulsive. It wasn't written in a moment of rage. It came from the same place as her best decisions, quiet, precise, and irreversible once done. Denise sat at her desk in the soft spill of afternoon light, glasses low on her nose, fingers poised above the keyboard. The air was still, heavy with a kind of unspoken finality. She opened the Venmo app. The cursor blinked in the payment field like it was waiting for her to blink first. $1,680.72. She double-checked the math. 9 transactions. Itemized. Verified. Her fingers hovered above the message field. For a moment she considered typing something gentle, something polite, the way mothers were trained to be. She even began with, "for," and paused. Then she deleted the words. It was not a request born of emotion. It was a balance due. She pressed request, and the screen blinked. Sent. She didn't mention it to anyone, not Rosa, not her attorney, not even herself in the notebook. Not yet. Instead, she moved through her day like she'd mailed a letter to an old friend and wasn't quite sure it would reach them. She did laundry, reorganized a kitchen drawer that had annoyed her for weeks, watered her plants twice, out of rhythm. By the evening of the 3rd day, no reply had come, not even a read receipt. On the 4th morning, her phone buzzed once. Venmo. Caleb has declined your payment request. A beat later, another notification appeared. User has blocked you. Denise stared at the screen, her face unreadable, her hand perfectly still. Not shocked, not wounded, just finished. She didn't react outwardly. Instead, she opened the screenshot function, captured both screens in a single frame, and saved the image to her desktop folder labeled Tate, Activity. Then she attached the image to an email addressed to her attorney. Subject: Further documentation. Body: Request declined. No discussion. Account has since been blocked. All details in the attached image. Recommend proceeding with full report as discussed. She signed it. Denise Tate. No regards. No, let me know. Just her name, as clean and quiet as the action itself. 3 hours later, she was stirring lentils on the stove when another notification buzzed across the kitchen counter. She wiped her hands on a towel and picked up the phone. It was from her bank. Multiple transaction attempts declined. Card ending in 3289. Time: 3:04 p.m. She scrolled down. $53.29. Rideshare app $118. Sneaker outlet $34.50. Food delivery $402.16. Electronics store all blocked, all denied, all within a 12-minute window. She let the phone rest against the counter, her free hand still holding the wooden spoon. The lentils continued to simmer, bubbling quietly in the pot. She didn't speak, didn't curse, didn't even sigh. But she did smile. Just a little. After dinner, she returned to her desk and opened the folder again. She added a new page to the file. Attempted charges. March 31st. Each amount, each timestamp, each vendor. She circled the 3:04 p.m. charge in red ink. Then she opened her bank's support chat. Message: Fraud attempts noted immediately following blocked Venmo request. User has history, requesting permanent freeze and independent fraud review. A few minutes later, she received confirmation. The account was now flagged and locked under executive review. She saved the transcript and logged out. Her house felt different that night, not louder, not emptier, just freer, as though the walls had been waiting for her to make this decision. She made chamomile tea, took her notebook from the hallway drawer, and opened to a fresh page. April 1st. Venmo request sent. Declined. Blocked. 4 failed charges followed. Full documentation sent to attorney. She tapped the pen once against the paper, then wrote slowly. He said he didn't remember. My bank did. Her bank alerts her. Multiple new charges attempted and denied. He froze me out emotionally. I froze him out financially. The voice on the other end of the line was calm, almost cheerful. We've closed all linked accounts, Ms. Tate. You are now the sole holder of your profile, with no third-party access. Denise pressed the phone closer to her ear, though the words were already embedded. Thank you, she said quietly. The representative continued, and we've flagged any future access attempts. If anything changes, you'll be notified in real time. Perfect, she replied. Not a ounce of hesitation, not a flicker of remorse. She ended the call, placed the phone on the kitchen counter, and looked out the window. The sky was clean blue. A breeze moved through the tree branches like someone exhaling slowly. Everything was still. She liked it that way. She was pouring herself a second cup of tea when the doorbell rang. 3 short chimes, too fast to be polite, too familiar to be random. She didn't move at first, but then came the knock. Harder, not angry, just impatient. Denise opened the door slowly. Caleb stood on the porch with a backpack slung over one shoulder, his shirt wrinkled, and his eyes shifting quickly across her face as if trying to read it before it settled. "Hey," he said, "can I come in?" She didn't answer the question, just held the door open for a few seconds, long enough for him to take it as permission. Inside, he dropped his bag beside the entryway table like he used to do in high school, as though muscle memory excused intrusion. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't urgent," he began. "I got behind on rent. 2 months, technically, but my landlord's only asking for one right now. He's chill. It's just, I need help." She walked past him into the kitchen, her footsteps slow but steady. He followed. "I'm not asking for a handout," he added, voice lighter now, softer. "Just a loan, like bridge money." She reached for the kettle. "I don't offer bridges anymore." "Come on, Ma." He laughed awkwardly, as if humor might soften what hung between them. "You always said if I was really in trouble?" "You told me last month things were tight," she interrupted. "You used my card without permission, then declined to repay it, and then you blocked me." He blinked, thrown off. "I didn't mean it like that." She turned toward him, eyes steady. "Intent doesn't fix theft, Caleb." The room went silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint click of the kettle base warming. He shifted on his feet. "So what? You're just cutting me off?" "I'm not cutting you off," she said. "I'm stepping back. If you need help, there are resources, applications, emergency grants, public services. You're not a child." He swallowed hard. "But I'm your son." "You were my responsibility," she replied. "Now, you're your own." He didn't say anything for a moment, then he turned abruptly, grabbing his backpack and heading toward the door without another word. She followed a few steps behind, stopping just inside the threshold as he stepped onto the porch. As he walked down the path toward the street, she noticed the car parked at the curb. Beat up, mismatched panels, a missing hubcap. Not his. He opened the passenger door. The driver was someone she didn't recognize. Young, hoodie up, engine running. He didn't look back as he got in. She watched the car pull away until it turned the corner and disappeared from sight. Back inside, she wrote in her notebook, April 2nd. Bank confirmed. All accounts isolated. Caleb came by, asked for rent. I declined. Walked out angry. Car wasn't his. Driver unknown. She added one final line before closing the book for the night. He froze me out emotionally. I froze him out financially. He leaves angry. She watches him walk to a borrowed car. He posted his version. I added a receipt. The message came through at 8:14 p.m. on a Wednesday, an hour when the house had gone quiet and the tea kettle had just finished its sigh. Denise was halfway through folding a clean bath towel when her phone vibrated on the counter. The family group chat. She rarely looked at it anymore. It had become a steady stream of baby pictures, forwarded memes, and half-hearted holiday plans that rarely materialized. But Caleb's name on the screen made her pause. She unlocked the phone, thumb slow, breath steady. The message stared back at her in bold, unpunctuated text. Caleb. Some people just forget who raised them. No context, no tag, no clarification, just a calculated nudge, thrown into the center of the room like a match. For a moment, no one responded. Not Aunt Leanne with her endless emojis. Not his cousin Jared, who usually answered within seconds with some joke or joke-adjacent commentary. Just stillness. Then one reply trickled in. Jared. Wait, what? Denise stared at the screen. Her hand hovered above it. She could have ignored it. She could have logged out, left it to burn down in whispers. But instead, she opened her photo app. She found the picture from her birthday, just days ago. A modest round cake, barely 4 inches wide, sitting on a glass plate beside an empty chair. One single candle stood upright, its wax already slightly tilted, like it had waited too long to be noticed. She uploaded it. Denise. March 22nd. My birthday. No text, no call, no knock. The typing bubbles on the screen multiplied, then disappeared, then multiplied again. No one sent anything. She took a breath. Not deep, not dramatic, just steady. Then she uploaded the second photo. It was a screenshot, cropped clean. To show the restaurant charge, her card, March 22nd, $93.47. Below it, Caleb Tate, authorized user. She didn't explain it. She didn't accuse him. She just posted it and waited. The group chat went still again, as if everyone had collectively backed out of the room to avoid eye contact. She could almost hear the silence through the screen, that specific kind of awkward familial hush, the one people fill with casseroles and small talk at reunions. 3 dots appeared again. Aunt Leanne. They blinked, paused, disappeared. And then finally, Aunt Leanne. He did what? Denise didn't respond. She didn't need to. Caleb did. Caleb. Wow. So we're posting receipts now? Thought family kept things private? She let the message breathe, let it sit like sour milk at the bottom of the thread. Then, deliberately, she typed, Denise, privacy is earned. Like trust, both were spent. There were no heart reacts, no follow-ups. The chat hung open for 20 minutes without movement. A digital ghost town with open windows and shut doors. She placed the phone face down and returned to the laundry, folding the last towel with careful corners. By the time she finished, another message buzzed in. She didn't rush to read it. She sat down at the table instead and opened her notebook. April 3rd, Caleb attempted public narrative shift. Posted in family group chat. Some people just forget who raised them. Replied with proof. Birthday photo, transaction log. Family silent. Aunt Leanne responded with disbelief. Caleb deflected. She added one last line. He posted his version. I added a receipt. When she did check the phone again, there was one more message. From a cousin she hadn't heard from in over a year. Alyssa. I remember who always showed up. Just saying. Family falls silent. One aunt messages, he did what? He said he didn't mean to, but his balance says otherwise. The message arrived at 6:07 a.m. Denise hadn't been asleep, not really, just lying still with her eyes closed, listening to the faint hiss of wind against the window pane and the soft creaks of an old house settling into silence. When the phone buzzed, she waited 5 seconds, then 10, before picking it up. Caleb. Sorry if things got out of hand. Didn't mean for it to feel like I was taking advantage. No greeting, no specifics, just a string of diluted intentions wrapped in soft language and slippery phrasing. Denise read it twice, then once more, not for clarity, but for confirmation. There was no mention of her birthday, no mention of the blocked card, no mention of the unpaid charges. Just regret implied without ownership, like an apology left in a hallway, hoping someone else would claim it. She didn't reply. She got up and moved through her morning like she was assembling a quiet ritual, pressed her blouse, watered the basil, boiled water for tea. Earl Grey today. Strong. She didn't sweeten it. The phone remained on the counter, screen dark. At exactly 6:49 a.m., she opened her email instead to Melissa Crane, Esquire. Subject, Addendum, Statement from Caleb Melissa. Please find attached a screenshot of a recent message received this morning. Language is vague. No acknowledgement of specific behavior. No restitution offered. Please add to formal record and timeline summary. She attached the image, signed it simply, Denise Tate. The next 2 days passed with clockwork quiet. Caleb did not follow up. No call, no explanation, no direct effort to repair what had been fractured. Only that single message, now frozen in her attorney's archive. On the 3rd day, the letter arrived. Not a text, not a voicemail, a real envelope, thick, official, windowed, postmarked from a financial institution she didn't recognize. She opened it at the table, slicing the top with the edge of a butter knife. Inside, a printed notification regarding a past due loan balance, account ending in 4721. The letter was not addressed to Caleb. It was addressed to Denise R. Tate. Her eyes narrowed. She read the first paragraph again, then the second. By the third, her breath slowed into something low and measured. The loan had been opened 2 years ago. Amount, $5,000. Status, delinquent. Borrower, Denise R. Tate. Authorized contact, Caleb Tate. She set the paper down. Not roughly. Just enough to stop it from shaking. Her tea had gone cold. She didn't reheat it. She walked calmly to the desk in the den and opened the Tate activity folder. Retrieved the earlier screenshots. The dinner charge. The declined Venmo request. The emergency bank freeze. All of it. Then she added the letter. 3-hole punched it with practiced fingers. Filed it under a new tab labeled Identity Misuse. Her hand paused on the spine of the folder. Then she wrote in her notebook, April 6th. Received letter from loan servicer. Account opened in my name. 2 years ago. Signature falsified. Linked to Caleb. Confirmed SSN used. She drew a long, deliberate line beneath it. Then, underneath in her smallest handwriting, he said he did. Mean to. But his balance says otherwise. The sun had risen fully now, stretching across the dining table, catching the corner of the unopened envelope flap like a blade of truth. Denise leaned back in her chair. There were no more questions, only facts and consequences. She receives a letter. Caleb took out a loan using her SSN 2 years ago. He thought I was too sentimental to press charges. I was just slow to press send. The detective's office was colder than she expected, not in temperature, but in tone. Pale walls, metal filing cabinets, the faint smell of old coffee grounds and printer toner. Detective Amanda Price sat across the table, her expression unreadable but not unkind. Her blazer was buttoned to the top. No jewelry, no wasted movement. Denise reached into her leather folder and began laying out the pages. I've organized them chronologically, she said softly. There's a log of unauthorized charges, a copy of the Venmo decline, and a photo of the necklace transaction. Then here, she passed over a fresh page. This is the loan account. It was opened 2 years ago. That's my name, my social security number, my address. Price nodded once, already reading. And you never opened this account yourself. I've never had a loan with this bank, and I've never needed one. She slid over her notebook next, each page marked with tidy dates and shorthand summaries. Did you confront him about it? No, Denise said. Not after the letter. I stopped warning him a long time ago. The detective took her time. She flipped through each document with careful attention. Denise watched the woman's eyes scan, shift, pause. Occasionally, she made a note on a yellow legal pad. How long has this been going on in total? Price asked without looking up. Over 2 years, but I only started documenting last month. That's a long time to wait. Denise folded her hands. It takes time to be thorough, and to be believed. There was a long silence between them, not awkward, just deliberate. Then Price leaned back, pen resting in her fingers. We can open a formal case today. I'll need to file a full fraud affidavit and request bank subpoenas. From what I'm seeing, this isn't petty misuse. This is felony-level identity theft. Denise nodded. Her expression didn't shift. Will I be notified? She asked. When we move forward? Yes. And when he's served. It took 2 more meetings. One by phone, one over a secure video call. Denise walked through every date, every charge. The detective asked precise questions, never wasting a word. Each time, Denise was prepared, quiet, firm, composed. On the final call, Detective Price confirmed what Denise had expected, but still felt strange to hear. We'll be issuing notice by the end of the week. It will be hand-delivered. He'll be informed of the pending investigation, and you will be listed as the reporting party. There was a pause on Denise's end. Then, finally, she spoke. He thought I wouldn't do this. He's not the first, Price said. But that's how fraud works. They count on your silence. Denise didn't sleep that night. Not from worry, but from clarity. She sat by the window in her living room with a cup of chamomile, watching the wind shuffle through the trees. The street was still, every porch dark except hers. At exactly 7:48 the next morning, she received an email. Subject: Notice of Service Body. Caleb Tate has been served. Case number 14,873 FT now active. Additional documentation will follow. Please do not engage directly. There were no flourishes, no dramatics, just facts. Denise placed her hand on the notebook beside her and opened to a clean page. April 9th. Met with detective, filed affidavit, provided full records. Case opened. Caleb served with notice at 7:42 a.m. Fraud investigation underway. She pressed the pen to the final line and wrote, "He thought I was too sentimental to press charges. I was just slow to press send." At noon, her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, so she let it go to voicemail. Later, she played it back once. Then again. It was Caleb's voice. Shaky. Rushed. "I got this thing today. I don't know what you're doing, but you don't have to do this. We're family, right?" Denise deleted it. Then she picked up her tea, walked to the sink, and poured it down the drain. Caleb is served with official notice, pending investigation into fraud. He wanted to be treated like an adult. Now he gets adult consequences. The lawyer didn't flinch at the changes. She had seen it before. Mothers realigning the documents of legacy after being quietly cut out of the lives they helped build. What surprised her was how calm Denise was. No quiver in the voice, no drawn-out explanation, just the exact edits she wanted, handed over in clean print. "No beneficiaries from direct bloodline?" Melissa asked, reading the line again for clarity. "Correct," Denise said. "No personal distributions, all assets to be transferred into the scholarship fund." Melissa nodded. "And the trust details?" "Included. Community education for women over 40. Priority given to single mothers and caregivers who return to school after raising children." The pen didn't hesitate in her hand as she signed. One signature, then another. Then a final tap of the pen against the desk. Denise closed the folder herself. Done. She stopped by the print shop on the way home, ordered 10 copies of the new will, then drove to the community center. The women's circle met every Thursday at 3 p.m. in a sunlit back room that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and dry erase markers. Folding chairs in a half circle, a coffee station in the corner, a bowl of peppermints no one ever touched. The week before, she had quietly asked the organizer if she could speak. "Not about parenting," she'd said. "About boundaries, financial ones." Now she stood before 15 women, most of them older than 50, several clutching notebooks or paper fans, one quietly tearing at the label of a water bottle. "My son used my credit card to take someone else to dinner on my birthday," she began. There was a pause, a soundless beat of shared recognition. No gasps, just silence. Understanding. "I used to think protecting him was the same as loving him. It wasn't. It was just expensive." Soft laughter broke the tension. Not loud, but knowing. She continued. "Boundaries are not punishments. They are definitions of where you end and someone else begins, of what you allow, of what you don't allow twice." She spoke for 20 minutes. Not once did her voice rise. Not once did she ask for pity. When she sat back down, one woman reached over and gently touched her hand. Another murmured, "You just saved me $2,000. Back at home, Denise updated her files. Caleb's name was removed from her healthcare proxy, her bank account, her emergency contact list. She paused over the section labeled Digital Legacy and deleted him there too. It felt quiet afterward, not empty, just undistracted. She sat by the window, sipping the last of her coffee, when her phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. The message preview read, "Hi, Ms. Tate. I'm a reporter with the Ledger. We came across your story through a local financial counselor. Would you consider sharing your experience? We'd love to cover it." She stared at the message for a long moment, then tapped it open and reread it. Once, the idea of airing anything publicly would have terrified her, but this wasn't about shame. This was about precision, about naming the things that had always been passed down silently, without instruction. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she opened her notebook and wrote, April 14th. Will updated. Legacy realigned, community scholarship created, first group talk completed. Felt useful, not used. She added a final line. He wanted to be treated like an adult. Now he gets adult consequences. Her phone buzzed again. Same number. This time just a single sentence. Your story could help others. A reporter reaches out. We'd love to cover your story. He always assumed I'd cover the check. Now I only cover what matters. The bell above the door jingled softly as Denise stepped into the diner. It was a narrow little place on the corner of 8th and Monroe, the kind of restaurant that hadn't updated its menu in 20 years, but where the coffee never tasted burnt, and the waitstaff called you hon without irony. She had passed it for years and never once gone inside, but today she walked in like she'd been there before. It was just after 10 a.m., that quiet window when breakfast had faded but lunch hadn't begun. The booths were mostly empty. A man in work boots read a newspaper by the window. A young couple shared pancakes, whispering between sips of orange juice. She slid into a booth at the far end, where sunlight spilled across the cracked vinyl seat and made her coffee cup glow warm against her hands. The waitress was in her 50s, with a pencil behind one ear and a kindness that felt earned. "What can I get you this morning, hun?" she asked, voice textured like worn denim. Denise looked up from the menu but didn't need it. "Scrambled eggs, wheat toast, and a side of fruit," she said. "And coffee. Black." The waitress smiled. "Coming right up." Denise nodded. "Take your time." And she meant it. As she waited, she took a worn notebook from her purse and opened it to a blank page. She didn't write anything at first. Instead, she sat in the morning stillness, listening to the low hum of conversation, the gentle scrape of utensils, and the comforting clatter from the kitchen beyond the swinging door. This was the kind of silence she hadn't known she missed. Her phone buzzed once. She didn't reach for it. There was no part of her left that needed to know what Caleb might have said or hadn't. No curiosity about whether his tone had softened or sharpened. No more running tally of what she had given versus what had been taken. That math was already done. Breakfast arrived steaming, and she smiled her thanks. The eggs were fluffy, the toast perfectly browned. She took her time, savoring each bite like a decision that didn't need revisiting. Halfway through her second cup of coffee, the waitress returned to refill her mug. "You celebrating something?" she asked, glancing at the untouched phone on the table and the notebook folded shut beside it. Denise looked up, surprised by the question, but then she smiled, not out of habit, but from somewhere steady. "Yes," she said. "Freedom. Financial and otherwise." The waitress grinned, not pushing for more, just gave a small, knowing nod. "I like that," she said. "You let me know if you want pie. First slice is on me." Denise laughed. "Maybe next time." She finished her meal, placed the exact amount in cash on the bill, then added a generous tip. More than 20%. More than expected. Because when you know the cost of your time, you start paying others what they're worth too. She stood slowly, not rushed, and walked to the door. Before she stepped out, she glanced back once, not at the people but at the table. Nothing left behind, no bill unpaid, no unfinished conversations, no one waiting, just a clean booth, sunlight, and space. Outside the air had warmed, spring had taken full hold, and with it came a breeze that lifted the corners of her coat and made her feel new in her own skin. She didn't go home right away. She walked the long way back through the park, past benches she'd once pushed Caleb toward as a toddler, past the duck pond where he'd thrown breadcrumbs and laughter with equal abandon. That version of him felt far away now. She didn't grieve it. She remembered it, then let it pass. Later that afternoon, back at home, she opened her notebook again. April 18th, breakfast alone, diner on Monroe, paid in cash, tip generous, first meal in a while that didn't feel like a transaction. She paused, then wrote the final line of the page. "He forgot my birthday. I remembered how to protect myself."